Born in Brooklyn, New York, Burt Kempner moved to Philadelphia when he was 4 years old. He was not consulted in the matter. He knew from childhood that he wanted to be a writer. He loved playing with words and coming up with new combinations and puzzles. As an adult, his work as a scriptwriter and producer won major awards in the television and film industry. It was in 2015 that he started writing children's books. Over the course of this interview, you'll see why I refer to him as the word wizard.
You have worked with words in a number of capacities, Burt, as a news reporter, a scriptwriter, and author. Your work has been crafted by words. In 2015, you dedicated your work with words to children. What was it that called you to focus your time and your talent on writing children's books?
Okay. It was kind of a need to reinvent myself. I had spent most of my career as a scriptwriter for documentaries and nonprofit programming. And starting in the 90s, the trend came to reality TV and unscripted programming. So they didn't need narrators and they didn't really need me that much anymore. So I saw everything evaporating around me. So I said, okay, I've got to do something else. So I cast around for an idea. I said, I'd made up some stories for my kid when he was a little 4 or 5 year old. And some of them were pretty good. Maybe I'll try and see if I can market those. So I wrote up this story that I made up for him about a narcoleptic blue whale who falls asleep in the middle of a food migration and is rammed on either side by 2 ships who think they've discovered an uncharted island and claim it for their own countries. And it almost comes to war. They're all loaded up with cannons to fire. And then the whale wakes up and submerges. And they said, okay, what do we do now? And they decided, let's not go to war. Let's go to Jamaica and have a picnic. And that's what they did. So in the middle of the first Gulf War, I sent it off to some publishers. And man, I got lame-basted. This is no time for a story like that. And I said, an anti-war story? What better time than a war? But the reception kind of chilled me, so I put it in a drawer and let it languish for 10 years. And then finally, I came across a publisher who liked it. So I did that, and then did another one very quickly on the heels of that. And then it was off to the races. I just started pumping them out, and it was hugely enjoyable, and I have more fun than the law should allow. And I'm still doing it.
That is absolutely amazing. I'm so glad as a mother of 6, I can appreciate you using your time and your talent this way. So at the moment, author of 8 children's books ranging from, as you mentioned, Larry the Lazy Blue Whale, Monty the Movie Star Moose, the 5-book series of A School of Animal Magic Adventure.
Yes.
Is there a common thread that binds these books together? Is there a common theme that weaves them all together?
Well, in that all of the books are about animals. They feature animals, and there's only a few that have humans in them. And like Aesop, you get all these human foibles put onto poor animals, unsuspecting souls that they are. And so each of them tries to teach a painless lesson with some little subversive humor thrown in there. I figured if parents got to read it over and over again, they might have enjoyed themselves too. There's lots of stuff that goes over the kiddies' heads. But, each has a little theme. We're talking about, anti-war in one book. And the other one is about the movie star Moose is about the celebrity worship and how hollow it is, and the importance of being who you really are and not pretending. And the 5 Fierce Tigers of Rosa Martinez, in that a young girl visualizes her way to health thanks to her imaginary 5 tigers. And the School of Animal Adventures, School of Magic Animal, it's about endangered species. And I approached it, this is a very depressing subject for young kids to try and get their minds around. So how to do it in a way where you don't try and soft soap it and pretend it's not a problem, but you don't want them crying or sitting in their closet with their heads down. So I try to deploy some humor and excitement and thrills to tell that story. And I think it's worked out pretty well.
That is awesome. So speaking of the stories that you referenced just now, that I recently read a book of yours that instantly became near and dear to me. And it was your book, as you mentioned, The 5 Fierce Tigers of Rosa Martinez. I wondered if you could share the story behind that story.
Sure. Some years back, I had a cardiologist whom I don't have anymore, who put me on a medication. I said, "Oh, please don't do that. I had a bad reaction before." But he said, no, it'll be fine. Well, it wasn't fine. And I ended up in the hospital almost entirely bled out. And I was not feeling great. I was exhausted. I really felt that the medical profession had let me down. I was feeling a little sorry for myself. And the second night I was there, the door kind of swung open to my room, and then walked these 5 tigers. And I said, "Uh-oh, am I hallucinating? What's going on?" And I said, "I really seem to be awake." And I knew everything about them. I knew their personalities, I knew their name, I knew their backstories. And I got the impression that they were there to help me. So I just let them hang around for a while, and I went to sleep. And the next day, my recovery just zoomed. And, I said, okay, my tigers did that. So when I got discharged, I think maybe 2 days later, I sat down and I said, I'm not going to keep this story to myself. I'm going to adapt it for kids, because there are a lot of kids and ill children and parents who need hope and healing. So, I polished that book off in a day. And it just came pouring out. When I get going, it just pours out of me. The cliche is I'm a stenographer, but in this case, it was true. It really was. So, it's done pretty well. And in one instance, a friend gave it to a friend of hers whose son was suffering from leukemia. And the kid went into remission. And he said to his mom, my tigers did that. And I said, oh, man, that is the sweetest thing I think I've ever heard. So if for nothing else in my life, if maybe I was put here just to do that, to help that kid.
That is, and I can say it is quite a story. And it was one that not only for kids, but like you're saying, for parents, for all people, about what is possible.
Yeah, I like to say, Allie, that my stuff is for kids 6 to 10 and adults over 25 who've gotten over themselves a bit. And, that's what I'm aiming at.
Well, you're doing a brilliant job with what you're doing. Let's talk for a moment about your newest book, your most recent release, which is One of Our Gorillas is Missing. Please give us a preview. Tell us about this book.
Okay, well, this is the 5th in the School of Animal Magic Adventures. And each is a standalone book. You don't have to read one to get 5. They're each can be self-contained. And it's about a school in which the teachers and students are not humans, but animals. And what they're taught is survival. And the school has this ace action team consisting of a young, impetuous elephant, a female, and her best friend, who's a wisecracking cattle egret, and a white lion, who's an emissary from the stars. And he has a lot of magical powers. And they're dispatched in each book to help an endangered species. And the last one is, as the title says, about gorillas. And the headmaster of the school, Professor Quinn, is a silverback gorilla. And he goes to mountain gorilla country when his nephew goes missing. Nephew had been searching for his father, who had disappeared. Well, Professor Quinn disappears. So who goes to the rescue but the action team? But it not only tells about what's going on with gorillas, but it gives kids some things they can do. Each of the books has some concrete steps the kids or the parents can take to help. So I didn't want to just, leave it there without getting them involved somehow. Because, children are born inherently with a love of nature. But unless it's constantly reinforced, it fades. And I've seen it happen over and over again. And if they don't love nature as children, they're not going to be inclined to fight for its preservation as adults. So, if I can help get a new generation of little activists going, that would be great.
I agree. I think that would be great for sure. Let's switch gears for a moment from your works to your words. Because you are a writer, I must ask, do you have a favorite word? In all of the words of the English language, is there one that is your favorite?
Okay, well, I guess I should say royalties. That's what I live on. But no, I guess if I had to think of a word fast, it would be grace, because I've seen it over and over again in other people, and sometimes I've even been touched by it myself, and it never fails to leave me awe-stricken and humble and just so utterly grateful. So I guess grace would be the word.
Grace is a good one. Grace is a good one for sure. For those who want to pursue a career in the service of others with writing, what advice do you have for them?
Forget what you were taught in school and start writing. And don't say, well, I'm not good enough. Start writing. And if you write something and say, well, this is awful, keep writing. The important thing is to get your ideas down on paper, and you can refine it over and over again, but get them on paper. You have to almost read twice as much as you do, because that's the best way to help yourself, is to see how other great writers handle characterizations and plot and things like that. And my main bit of advice was never give up. Never, ever give up. You're going to be met with rejection and people will try and put you down. Keep going, and never give anybody else the power to determine what you feel about yourself. And artists and all creative types are subject to that. People say things either, maybe they're not quite aware, it's unconscious, or they're mean and they want to drag you down. So just do not get discouraged.
Mm-hmm. Those are all great pieces of advice. I want to thank you so much for saying so much in such a small period of time. You have a way of doing that.
Forgive me, Father, I am verbose.
You are efficient with your communication. Thank you so much for taking this time to share your story, the story behind your stories. Thank you for helping all of us just become a bit more aware now. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie.